Hamakavi Barzel presents Rabbi Nachum Shifren, Torah scholar, author, public speaker, and good friend of the late Rabbi Meir Kahana.
Let's tell you this little story. I hope that you'll like it. My oldest son, Yonah, we were in Jerusalem. This was, about 5 years ago, I guess. And he was getting married on that same day. And, there's a lot of stress and lachatz, as they say, in when it's the day of your wedding. A lot of stuff to think about, a lot going on. And so we met in the bus station in the heart of Jerusalem. Jerusalem Kodesh, and all of a sudden we hear this loudspeakers blaring off across the street in a place called Binyanei Uma. I guess it's the offices of the state offices. There's a big area there, and there was a big protest, a big demonstration there. My son says, "Dad, let's go over there. I want to check it out." And I go, "Are you kidding me? You're going to be married in a couple of hours. We've got a lot of stuff to do." He goes, No, I just want to go check it out. So what am I going to do, right? What would you do if your son or daughter told you that in that vociferous way? So we went over there, across the street, loudspeakers blaring, people going crazy. A big banner that said, Kachol Lavan, it's a political party called Kachol Lavan, blue and white, or white and blue. And the colors of the Israeli flag, of course. But this was a little bit different. They had their motto underneath the flag and saying, Anu rotzim lot am normali. Their rason d'etre was, we want to be a normal people. And then in the subtext, like all the other nations in the world. So anybody that sees the humor in that can acknowledge it. If you don't see it, I'll tell you in a second. So my son, of course, without hesitation, he's very apt to just jump up and say the first thing that comes off his mind, kind of like shooting at the hip. He says, "Well, where's your leader? For this demonstration?" So somebody tells him where the leader is, and we go over there. My son goes, "What do you mean by this motto?" And he goes, "Well, what do you mean? What do I mean?" Self-explanatory. He goes, "No, I don't get it." He goes, "We want to be a normal people like everybody else." Now, I tell this story often because it's something that's like beyond, human understanding. My son immediately interjects, "But we're not normal." I think about that a lot, and it's true. If anybody listening to this podcast, you can share it with your friends. As far as I'm concerned, please do. Hopefully the word will get out. We're definitely not normal. If anybody thinks Jews are normal, they should think about it again. We were exiled in Egypt. Pretty soon we're going to celebrate our redemption from exile out of Egypt. But we were there for 210 years. Slavery, all kinds of terrible things going on. Why? Well, I think we've talked about this before, but it's always a good idea to come back to it. When Abraham was given the covenant, or when the covenant was given by God to Abraham, it was contingent on two things. And Abraham you could pick. He could pick either hell and damnation, or literally hell, where it's real hot down there, or he could pick slavery. Right? He has two choices. Now, why is that? Well, there's a clue to that question in the words that Moses said to Pharaoh back then. He said, "Shlach et ami shiavduni." Send my people out of Egypt so that they may serve me. Otherwise, it won't be good for you. And we know that the 10 plagues and whatnot, the frogs, the locusts, the animals, the blood in the river, they just got it socked to them. But what is it about that slavery? Why was that necessary? Here is an omnipotent God. He can do anything he wants just with the utterance of words. He created the entire worlds. It's called ex nihilo, from nothing to something. Scientists have still been trying to work on creating life. They can't do it. They never will be able to do it. There's only one person that can do it, and that is the same person that created heaven and earth. But what's the import here? What's the whole bottom line here of the experience in Egypt, which next week we certainly will celebrate it. Moses said to Pharaoh, send them out so that they will serve me. Well, up till then, they've been serving Pharaoh. Basically, Mitzrayim, or Egypt, was the kind of like the, how shall I say it, the training camp for the future of the Jewish people. In order to be subservient or servient to somebody, you have to have practice in slavery. You don't just come off the boat at Malibu and start building bricks for a pyramid somewhere. It doesn't work. You have to have basic training. 210 years of slavery. They got used to it. And that was the whole point. Sounds a little bit bizarre, a little bit disjointed somehow for some of us. But when it comes time to accepting the Torah, which was at Mount Sinai, as many of you know, the Torah was not offered to the Jewish people first. It was offered to them last. First people it was offered to were the Ishmael, people of Ishmael, the Muslim countries. The people said, well, what's in it for us? So God went right to the point and said, thou shalt not steal. And they said, well, we're not going to abide by that. He went next to the non-Muslim Gentile people of the world, meaning basically Christians. And he said or the forerunners of the Christians, there were no Christians back then. He said to them, they said to him, well, what's in it for us? And he said, thou shalt not murder. And they said, well, we're going to pass on that. Then he gave it to the Jews, and the Jews didn't say what's in it. They just did it. Now, this is after having been slaves for 210 years. What is it about the slave mentality? You tell them what to do, they do it. They don't ask. Don't ask any questions. That's what God needed. He needed a people that would do his will. Otherwise, he would plunge the world into darkness. The whole reason that the world is not, some people think it's pretty dark as it is right now. Matter of fact, it's pretty doggone dark. A lot of people talk about it in their sermons, in their talks and whatnot about the darkness. And we know it, we see it, we feel it. Depending on how you look at life, you look at it in a certain way, the world's a pretty beautiful place. But if you look at it from a different standpoint, you see the reality of the world, and things can be pretty depressing. Again, it depends how you look at it. But without the Jews accepting the Torah, there would be no world. That sounds pretty crazy. And what's the proof? When there was a flood, everybody who went to Bible class or whatever remembers the great flood. The question was asked, well, what about the animals? Why would you kill all the animals and the trees and the insects? They didn't do anything wrong. God said, there's no reason for any life whatsoever if there's no man on the earth. Okay, so that's the reason. That's the proof that the world would be thrown into darkness if somebody would not do the will of him. The will meaning the Torah. Torah is literally the will of God. People can talk about it, and they can argue about it, and they can pontificate or jest about it. Whatever it is, each one of us has to come to grips with what are we doing here? What's the whole point, right? So this parsha is called VAYIKRA, and that was by the way, let's get back to my son Yonah. There's definitely truth to what he said. I can tell you that nobody who's such a small country as Israel, surrounded by 22 Arab nations, and that's not odd. You don't get odds like that at Vegas. It's real simple. They're a small minority, yet we see that they've survived every single time, every war. There's been 5 wars to try to murder and extinguish the Jewish people. They've failed each time. They'll continue to fail. It's not going to work. The fact that Jews are suffering and going through trials and tribulations because of these horrific things going on, that's another thing. But there is a God in heaven, and the proof, if anybody wants to know the proof, look at the Jewish people, what they went through with the Holocaust and the pogroms and the Crusades and the Inquisitions and with communist Russia. It never ended. And so we see these amazing miracles, and we talk about it when we have our Passover Seder, which will be in a week or so. We talk about the exodus of Egypt and whatnot. Now, this week's Torah portion, we start a brand new book called VAYIKRA. And this is dealing with sacrifices. Now, that's going to make all the vegetarians out there very unhappy campers. Try not to laugh here. But it's all about offerings on the altar, whether they be goats or sheep or bulls or chickens or whatever it is. And we know that the altar, of course, was the house of God, right, in Jerusalem. Prior to that, it was the Mishkan, the tabernacle, where it was kind of like a roving situation in various parts. Same thing was done, offerings. And we have the vegetable world, the animal world, and when we had man, of course, being the executor of the offerings and whatnot, all for the purpose of serving the house in which God's dwelling place in this world was located. Why would he make a dwelling place in this world? He's everywhere and all at every place in the world all the time, 24/7. He's here, he's there, he's nowhere, he's everywhere. Can't tell where he is because the entire world is filled with his glory, as it says. But why would he want to make that temple? Because he wanted a place, as it says in the Zohar, in the Kabbalah, the mystical, esoteric writings of the Torah, that God desired a dwelling place in the lowest of all worlds. Why do I say lowest? Well, from a historical and from a spiritual standpoint, there doesn't get a lower place than this world, right? There's 4 different worlds, as we know. The world that is connected closely to God is called Atzilut. Itzel means with him. So, why? I mean, what's going on here? A being, a creator, omnipotent and wise, and everything that you can attribute to him. What's going on? Where he wants to be in a world where people are murdering each other, doing crazy stuff, idolatry, which of course he forbade. The answer is because out of darkness comes light. By the way, there's 2 kinds of, Torah says there's 2 kinds of light. One, there's light like you light a candle. And the other kind of light is where light comes literally from darkness. Darkness meaning a world where there was nothing previously, where unspeakable things were going on. And then all of a sudden, a people was created to do his will, to read his Torah, to study it, to teach it to their sons and daughters. And that was the light from the darkness. And so that was light that he wanted in his house on this earth. Then one of the very first passages from this week's parsha is very interesting, and great people have talked about it, great rabbis, great scholars. And it says, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban la'Hashem. A person who offers from him a offering to God. It's a little bit strange. Offering from him, meaning within him, in his innermost being, as opposed to a man who will which is what this means. A man who will offer from you, who will offer. In other words, a person who offers a offering, as opposed to a person who offers from himself an offering, meaning the offering is going to come from the guy himself. That's what the Kabbalists tell us, meaning we look upon ourselves as, and we can do this every day actually, if it's done properly with the right intent. We look at ourselves as if we ourselves are going to be offered. Why would that be? To think about really where our priorities are. We're not talking about literally, some sort of impaling ourselves onto some altar. No, we're talking about what is it about us, our essence, our being, our soul, that's something that needs to be offered. In other words, offering means burning, right? That's the idea here. Something about us from within us. That's what that passage actually means. It's a very unusual passage. So that's something that we see about this parsha, and we are on the advent of, as we said, Passover, and this idea of Mitzrayim, of Egypt. Mitzrayim is Hebrew for Egypt. The word Mitzrayim in Hebrew literally means, limitations or confinements, that sort of thing, confining. And that's what it was. Confinement meaning not free to do anything other than work and to be a slave. And the only thing that the Jewish people knew back then was their names. They didn't change. And then they knew that they were Jews. But they didn't, but beyond that, they didn't know anything. 210 years of nothing but hard labor each day. What's interesting that later on, after the Exodus and after people had written about it for 1,000 years or so, 2,000 years, I remember every year at this time, I always remember Bob Dylan. Anybody my age or over or around my age will remember that Bob Dylan once said, you got to serve somebody. You guys remember that? You got to serve somebody or something. Can't just be walking around. There's got to be some reason that you're here, some reason that connects you with the world, with your humanity. What is it? And each of us, we have to find that. That's our job. I remember he said, and I think in that same song, dogs run free, why can't we? Interesting observation, right? Pretty profound on on the one hand. On the other hand, it's kind of a little bit of a joke. But the idea of Mitzrayim, of confinement and constraint, is a place where it's dark, where there's no godliness, nothing other than Pharaoh and his armies, and the Jews would be making bricks for his pyramids all day long, right? Once they were redeemed and released, they became no longer servants of Pharaoh. They became servants of God. And that's what the Torah is all about. The Torah is there for us to study it, to learn it, to examine it, to really look at it with a very keen eye. And there's some later passages that we see in this week's parsha, in this week's Torah portion, where there's allusions to this idea of you're no longer servants of Pharaoh, but you're servants now of a new master who gave you the Torah, and that you need to study it. And bricks, instead of bricks, you're looking at different anecdotes or different allegories in the Torah and whatnot, and you're learning them with the same vigor and reverence that you were in Egypt, as it were, building those bricks. That's this week's Torah, basically, in a nutshell. Very difficult to comprehend for a lot of us. Serving who? We don't see him. We don't hear him. He doesn't talk to us. But when we read the Torah, he's talking to us then. Again, that's a very obscure comment, but this is what we believe. And there will be a time when there'll be another building of the temple. 2 temples were destroyed. Some of you know. There'll be a time when that third one will be built, and then the whole world will not just hear about God, they will see his maybe not his essence, but his work, his deeds, his miracles, and it'll all be there. With all this going on in the world and the darkness that is there to be extinguished, we can look with great hope and great enthusiasm at this parsha and see that there is a purpose behind everything. Nothing is for naught. We learn that. It says the Baal Shem Tov even said that when a leaf turns over, there's a reason for it. We don't know what it is, but there is some sort of ultimate reason. Anyway, with those good words, wish everybody Shabbat Shalom, a wonderful Sabbath. And when we read this Torah portion, we can be thinking about what is it about us, within us, that needs to be corrected, need to be offered on an altar, so that we'd be better people and happier and wiser and all the good things. Shabbat Shalom to everybody. God bless everybody.